Welcome to Crimson Guitars. Welcome to Luthiers Question Time, episode 53. I'm Ben Crowe, Master Luthier of Crimson Guitars, and I'm here in my shed answering your questions about guitar building and business and life. And you chuck a question at me and I will attempt to answer. It is an hour later than usual for some of you. The world went a little bit crazy, and we still believe that it's a good idea to change the clocks backwards and forwards at random times in the year. It's not a good idea. And all intelligent people think that. But, you know, what can you do? We've got Spike, Tutankhamun, Neil Jelks, Ravenwolf Guitars, Rob Tootle, Tutem Carman, Mr. Waffles. A bunch of us are in the house already. So welcome to the chaos. And let us get, well, let's get started, shall we say. All right, first question is from Spike. He says, Ben, I got my wood for my build, a dugout design 3 inches thick, acoustic / electric. Acousto-electric. Electro-acoustic. There we go, that's the correct. It's an hour later in the evening than I think it should be. Routing out the back from a solid sycamore slab and the top from maple routed the same way, and then gluing the two halves together. A crazy idea? Followed by 6 question marks. You ever done or heard of this method? I was wondering if the Japanese fire treatment to the insides would help the stability or possibly the sound. Canoe builder inspiration. And then I've got a couple of photos of the wood, which is very, very nice. The spalted, be aware of spalted maple. If the spalting is too spalty, then it'll be too soft for what you're talking about. But yeah, in general, that looks very, very cool. And yeah, it is a process that I have seen before. I have played with to a certain extent. I built an electroacoustic guitar, sort of small-bodied. It was strange. It had 3-inch. It was about 3 or 4 inches deep, basically, with a carved back. The back was carved out of a piece of sycamore. I did have some sides on it, and then it was a traditional flat-topped acoustic. So essentially it was a hand-carved ovation bowl-back guitar, something like that, along those lines. And that worked very well. In fact, I carved that. The back was carved out of cedar, and it really did. It sounded amazing. So yes, there we go. I have seen another company that makes guitars that sort of look like half-sucked lozenges, where I think that it is literally exactly what you've said. It's 2 pieces joined in the middle along the 2-inch line or 1.5-inch line, and everything carved. So it should absolutely be feasible and functional and fine. You are avoiding bending sides, which is great. If you carve carefully, you can get a really good sounding instrument. And yeah, it's definitely fun and worth a try. Not traditional, because in the end, there's a lot more work to do it this way. But then again, if you don't want to bend sides and mess around with that sort of work and bracing, etc., then this is a good way to get a strong, relatively loud electroacoustic instrument. So yeah, go for it. This is the first super chat of the evening from Joe, Smile John Jr. Thank you very much, Joe. Welcome to the show. Wow, that feels so weird calling it the show. This is also a podcast, so I suppose it works. Joe is coming with $10. And I'll remind the rest of you, if you want specifically and desperately want me to see your question, or just want to help support the show, then a super chat is the way to go. Question is, good afternoon / evening. I didn't miss the alert this time, lol. I have some spare hard maple and some bloodwood. Which one would you suggest for a handmade plane? ? The question mark is implied. Why do I even... Wow. Okay. Joe, I would suggest you make... Okay, either of those work absolutely perfectly fine. I would personally suggest that you make it out of both of them, if at all possible. Make the body of the plane out of maple and the sole out of bloodwood, and then you can get twice as many planes, because, hey, more planes is always a good idea. That being said, bloodwood would be better for the sole of a plane. It's harder wearing. But then again, most traditional wooden planes are made out of beech, European beech, and impregnated with oil. The way they used to do it before automation, as far as I've been told, was you would actually soak your beech in linseed oil for a year and then take it out and dry and all that jazz. So it was beech that was essentially, it's the same sort of process that we would use with cactus juice today. There we go. Anyhow, yeah, maple and bloodwood, either or. What do you think is the prettiest? Maple and bloodwood would make for a lighter plane. Anyway, let us move on. Lewis Wingrove says, "Hi there, Ben. Hope you're doing well." I'm okay, thank you very much. Life is interesting, very interesting at the moment. Okay. Okay, so George Davis says, "Ben, I sent an email to Crimson per your suggestion 2 weeks ago for an estimate and another question to take a class and never got a response." Okay, George, so quite frankly, that sucks. And that's also very, very surprising. We have had a bunch of... There are some changes. There have been some changes in staffing and in roles. And again, we've had one of the people that's supposed to be doing that sort of stuff off for the last 2 weeks. That being said, somebody else has been covering, and every single email should have been replied to without a shadow of a doubt. So the fact is that if you haven't had an email reply, I'm surprised and somewhat angered by this. So first of all, I apologise profusely. Saying I apologise profusely sucks. I apologise. And I will check out... I'm actually at Crimson tomorrow morning, and I will find out what the hell has happened there. And we will get back to you as soon as. Thank you for letting me know. Okay. Ossie Elonen says, "Good evening, Ben." Good evening. "Will I immediately shatter my brand new Crimson fret end pliers if I cut stainless steel frets with them?" First of all, thank you for supporting us by buying Crimson tools. And no, they are delicate. In fact, all fret end cutting pliers are delicate because they've only got the one bevel on the inside so that you can cut the tools flush, cut the fret ends flush. So what I'm saying is, if you use them properly and carefully, no problem whatsoever. If, and this does happen, not very often, but it's happened to me, which says something. If you, as you are cutting, if you twist a little bit, you can shatter any fret end cutting pliers. So just be very aware, very careful that you cut square to the leg section of the T of the tongue of the fret. I'm really struggling for words today. This is the Struggling for Words podcast this evening. But yeah, you should be okay. Robert R says, "Hey Ben, you might need to remind your people to check the spam filter." I like to believe that we live in a world in which most people who exist know to check the spam filter, but yeah, that's one of the things that I'm going to be checking tonight for sure. We have another super chat. Thank you very much, Phil Girk. You've come in with $10. Thank you. Pointers on strips for laminate necks. 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, etc., I'm struggling to achieve uniform dimensions and a proper surface for glue up. No planer. I have a table saw, a router, hand plane, saw file plane, etc. There was a dark period in my life before I had completely fallen in love with hand planes, and also before I completely dialed in how to sharpen them, when doing multi-laminate necks, it was an absolute nightmare. And I feel your pain. I've been there. You've taken me right back to that period in my life. So the biggest issue, you don't have a planer thickness, a lunchbox planer, anything like that, and that really is your friend in this situation. You know that. There we go. So with your table saw, most table saws should have enough of a cut depth to actually cut the entire width, the depth of a neck. So as long as your wood is correctly orientated for you to do that, you can get a very, very clean cut off a table saw, and you should be able to very carefully, table saws are scary, use that to cut strips off that are pretty damn close. And to be honest, using your fence and keeping your fingers out of the way, if you have enough depth of cut on the blade, that's what I would do in your situation. Cut the strips on the table saw. That would give you something very close to perfect. And then it is simply a case of hitting it with a well-sharpened hand plane. Now, there are several methods for sharpening planes, and in this case I would suggest that you look into putting a small curve on the blade of the plane. You don't a very, very small curve, and what it essentially means is that you, instead of trying to cut along the entire width of the plane, which is an inch and 3/4 or 2 inches, you're only cutting in about an inch area at a slight radius, and that allows you to pinpoint where you want to cut, and it makes planing large surfaces easier. And if it's a very gentle curve on the plane blade, you should be able to, it's microns is the difference, so that would make it much easier for you. Potentially also look into getting a cabinet scrapers, and I've done a video on how to sharpen them. They seem very scary because it's this micro weird bevel thing and hardening and work hardening, and it's not actually that scary. It can be done very, very rapidly, especially if you have fret leveling beams. They are perfect for preparing the scraper prior to sharpening. Okay, the final thing is the masking tape and super glue trick. Planing down, sanding down, scraping thin sections of timber is always difficult. Make sure you've got a nice flat workbench, a couple of pieces of masking tape at either end, and maybe even some sheets of paper in the middle, so that the thickness of the masking tape at either end doesn't mean that you're taking off more at the ends than you want to. But having that done that way, it means that you can stand by your workbench and just walk the entire length with your plane without worrying about stopping to hit a clamp or anything like that. For years, I hated doing this job in particular because I could never get the entire strip. You can't put it in dogs because it's so thin it just pops out and smashes. Masking tape and super glue trick is your friend. Okay, evening everybody. Please do not forget to click like, and yeah, there we go. Carl Price says, sometimes your ISP will remove mails from domains they think are spam without them ever getting to your spam filter. That shouldn't be the case with us. I think we're our own host. But I am definitely going to be. I'm definitely going to be looking into that. SE Guitar says the odd trick or treater over here. It is Halloween. It is Halloween, and I have had nary a soul approach my door today. I think the fact that we are flooded in 3 directions has something to do with that. Also, I live in a... It's not even big enough to be called a village. I think it's a hamlet. There's so few houses here, so there we go. George Davis says, thanks, it's not a big deal. I can resend the email if that would be easier for you. If you could resend the email, that would be great. That would just help us to know exactly what email address it's come from, and would just help the searching for the first one, because I almost don't care who this email is from. It's the fact that there was an email 2 weeks ago that was with regards to a guitar building course and another question, and we haven't answered you. That is just shit business. And the last thing I want to do is have a shit business, really. Especially with regards to customer facing and talking to people and, being here. I do these live streams to prove that, we're here, to be here for people, to answer questions. And if we can't answer a simple email, then quite frankly, we're doing something very, very wrong. And it needs to be fixed. Ben Timon says, always wear goggles when fret end cutting. That is true. I actually tend to snap them with one hand and hold my hand here in between my face, so I just catch them. The second tip, actually, is make absolutely bloody certain that you've got all of the fret ends that you've snipped off, because if they stay on your workbench, they will destroy a guitar. And I have, in fact... walked more than a few on the soles of my shoes into houses and places with delicate floors and scratched up a floor before. So you have been warned. Okay, Graham B says, so have you guys put the clocks forward? ? This is a more gentlemanly hour in New Zealand. New Zealand happy. Smiley face. For the next 6 months, New Zealand will be happy, unless you guys change your clocks back in a couple of hours. A couple of weeks, like the Americans do. But yeah. No, this is one of the things. What is it? It's 8:20 here in the UK. This would have been 9:20 last week. So for 6 months of the year, we'll be a little bit better. Mr. Waffle says, look up jointing with a table saw sled. That was to the earlier question. Divergent. How are you doing, Divergent? He sent a $10 super chat, 1 of 2. Okay, thank you very much. Howdy, Ben. I'm in the midst of, very slowly, I know that feeling. I really know that feeling. Very slowly building a 28.5-inch scale through neck baritone telly. You have to call it a baritelli. You do. I once built a baritone telly, and it was the coolest sounding instrument I'd ever made up to that point. And unfortunately, it had a bird's eye maple neck that was beautiful, and it, over about a year, twisted horribly, and it twisted at the nut towards me rather than away, so I couldn't even say that it was, ergonomic or anything. It was just soul destroying. Anyway, 28.5-inch scale through neck baritelli with an ice cream sandwich of flame black walnut top, maple wings, flame black walnut back. This sounds incredibly gorgeous. And Divergent Guitar sent a second super chat to continue, saying it's probably going to be really heavy. I think so. Should I route out an additional chamber inside the upper half of the body, or will that cause too much neck dive due to the longer scale length? Okay, so it will not have escaped your notice. I hope that I've been doing a lot of work drilling holes into guitars of late, and playing with weight relief and all that jazz. And yes, a few more inches of length on the neck is something to worry about with regards to neck dive, but the timbers that you've described are very, very heavy, so I really wouldn't worry about it. And in fact, as a general rule to everybody, I would not worry about neck dive in most situations, unless you were, even with Nebula, I was only tangentially worried. I must not forget to take Nebula with me tomorrow morning. Okay. I'm supposed to be filming a demo of that. I had completely forgotten until this very second. I was prepared to, pack the camera up and all the microphones and things, forgetting the subject of the video. Even with Nebula, I was not worried too much about neck dive, and that is an entirely hollow instrument. I made the tuners lighter than they were before. I used ebony on the tuners, and they are open back tuners as well, which are lighter than by Schertler. But it really wasn't something that was too much of an issue to me, because I know that at the worst, all I have to do is move the strap button just a little bit to rebalance it. And the strap button at the waist, at the jack end, at the bridge end of the guitar, you can move that 3 or 4 inches and completely and easily change the weight distribution of any guitar that you have. And it doesn't look absolutely spot on. It tends to look a little bit strange. But is it Tom Anderson that has 2 strap buttons every single time? Yeah, so it's not something I worry about too much. And in this recent video, I've removed some weight, quite a considerable amount of weight, as a percentage of the weight of the guitar, by drilling these holes. And it's still only going to be a normal guitar weight in the end. And a lot of people are saying, oh, well, what about neck dive? And it's taking it from 10 pounds to, I hope, somewhere around about 8, or maybe a little bit less, but nowhere near neck diving. And that's going to be the same thing with you. I think that if I were you, I would route away as much of that material as humanly possible. And in fact, if you're doing an ice cream sandwich type build, then what you can do is, out of that central section, route away most of it. Hell, you probably don't even need to leave a central section. Maybe leave a little waste in the middle and do 2 giant chambers, and you still won't have an issue with neck dive, in my opinion. It does depend on how thick that central section is going to be, of course, but go with it. At this stage, maybe weigh it and see, or weigh the component parts and see what you think it's going to come to, and have a look there. Alrighty. Dimitri says, hi Ben, I was watching one of your old broadcasts where you were talking about twisted necks. I wonder, is it really an issue? If there is no fret buzz, it might even be more comfortable, I think. You think correctly. So if it's twisted, as I just said with regards to the Barrettetti that I made, if it's twisted away from you, so it's flat at the body and then it twists away at the nut, then that means that your wrist is actually staying in a much more natural position. When you're playing with a normal guitar, your wrist is, there's tension on the back of your wrist. A twisted neck does not have that tension. Now, the Torsel twisted neck system is something that somebody whose name I should recall, there's that forgetting things again, they said, they've designed and done and made and created and proliferated to a certain extent, and it really is comfortable. And I've done it a few times, and it is. You don't have to have a perfectly planar, a perfectly flat neck. Each individual string needs to have a straight shot. But the whole thing does not have to be straight, not by a long shot. So yeah, no, you were thinking correctly. Disco Stew, how's it going, Disco Stew? Haven't seen you in a little while. Sent £4.50, thank you very much. It says, I am in need of a quality plane. I hear Gulfstreams are nice. Primary use jointing and hopefully headstocks. Recommendations for high, not collector quality from your shop. Obvs. I can never say that easily. Okay, so it really sucks that you weren't a student at Crimson from mid-January onwards, because I'm actually moving the tool shop to Crimson, and eventually I'm going to combine the two entities, because combining the entities saves me a lot of money, and also means that everything's in one place and I can actually be there for everything, which would be great. That being said, to joint anything that a guitar will need to have jointed, a number 7 plane is the most amazing of planes, and I use my number 7 with every single build, and I absolutely love it. It is, however, overkill. In all seriousness, you can use a number 6. So in fact, you could probably even get away with a 5.5, which is wide and a little bit shorter. So the general rule is that the jointer should, if at all possible, the jointer plane should, if at all possible, be around about the same, if not a little bit longer than the joint that you are making. So this is a number 6, yet to be restored number 6, actually. And it's around about the same length as the length of the body joint in a guitar body. And if you are careful and have a nicely restored plane, then you can do neck joints and multi-laminate necks and things like that. But again, even that on a number 6 can be overkill. So I would suggest any plane that is 5.5, 6, or 7, or 8, if you can find one, would be absolutely fine for you for jointing, etc. I tend to use smaller planes for headstocks. I personally love number 3s. They just sit in my hand. It just sits in your hand perfectly. It's lightweight, and again, it's actually only a little bit longer than the headstock. So, but that is just me, and I have a plethora of planes, and if I don't use each one of them every now and then, they start feeling sad. And I wouldn't want that now, would I? As a general rule, for guitar building, I would say a low angle block plane, a number 3 or a 4, and then a plane to use predominantly for jointing, which would be a 5.5, 6, or 7. And choose your poison from that. If you would like me to pick one out for you in particular, send an email through to shop@vintagetoolshop.com and mark it for the attention of Ben /plain question, something like that. And I will go through and the next time I'm there, which isn't all the time, but we'll find one. Also, mention your budget. And at the very least, choose a plane that you like that we've got on the website, and I will make sure that it is fit for what you want. Should be, but it's worth checking. All the same. That's what I was trying to say. All right, super chat from Marsha Levine. Marsha, I've missed you the last couple of weeks. Good evening. Have you had a chance to read my letter and viewed the photos? I have indeed. If so, I'm wondering what you thought of the monster desk. Yes, I burned it. Oh my gosh. Yes. Well, I thought. Okay, so there was a couple of weeks that I looked through all the photos, and I thought that the monster desk got left behind at your old property. That being said, I thought it was all very, very cool, and I am going to reply. My reply is potentially going to take as long to come as your original letter did come to me, but I am going to do it. I have not written a hand letter in a long, long time. But you know what? It's fun. But yes, I was getting worried. I haven't seen you for the last couple of weeks in the live stream. So Lisa says, does that mean the streams will come from there? No, because the streams are shot late in the evening for me. And the workshop is half an hour from where I live, and that would just make it an utterly untenable situation. The beautiful thing about the live stream here, Lisa, is that I can do the hell. I cook dinner, I do the dishes, the children. My wife is making sure the children are at least slightly clean and in bed and ready for school in the morning. And I've done my parental stuff, and it hasn't caused too much issue. And if there are any issues, I'm right here. Whereas if I was away at the factory, then no, that wouldn't be good. Okay, Marko Racevic says, hello Ben, why no one cut radius slot cuts for frets? Below the G and D strings, the slots run necessarily too deep and affect the fingerboard strength. Okay. You've not seen one of our guitars, because that's exactly what we do. In fact, that's what many people do. Cheaper instruments, mass-produced instruments that are cut on a gang saw, i.e., for example, what StewMac used to cut their fret slots is it's a gang saw. It's lots of tiny little, maybe 4-inch, maybe 5-inch table saw blades, all on a one axle. And it goes around and you push the fretboard through and you've got a flat slot. And that is shitty. And as you say. Now at Crimson, all of our fret slots on the production guitars are cut on a CNC machine using a 0.6 millimeter cutter, I think it is. Maybe smaller. And it takes very small passes and it cuts matching the radius of the fretboard. In fact, we cut in blind fret slot ends so that we don't even need to fill the fret slots on most of our instruments now. The production guitars at the very least. And so if you've got a quality guitar, that shouldn't be an issue. If you haven't got a quality guitar and you do a refret, then all you need to do is flood that fret slot with glue. Now, I must, in the interests of full disclosure, say that I'm in the middle of rethinking my choice of glue yet again. I don't like super glue. The cleanup is an absolute nightmare. I have been using for the last number of years a tight bond, which is basically just white glue. But if you've got a deep slot, the tight bond might take a long time to cure and it might actually shrink as it goes. So I need to do some experiments on that one. Garage Master Guitar says, low angle block plane recommendations? Question mark. I'm going to try and stop saying that. Okay, so this is a slightly customized Kwangshan low angle block plane made in China. Absolutely fantastic. I suspect they make Wood Rivers planes, although that is just some gossip that I've heard. I might be wrong. This is a fantastic plane. I also have the Lee Nielsen version of this plane, which is probably double the price. And this is maybe not as clean from a visual point of view. The Lee Nielsen has just a little bit of something more. But as a plane, there's no real difference in my opinion. Luban is also their name, so Kwangshan or Luban. I buy mine from Workshop Heaven in the UK if they have any stock of them. But yes, that is fantastic as a new tool. I've had some issues with the Stanley Sweetheart low angle plane. It's massive. That's a relatively smaller, lighter weight plane, and you don't need a heavy plane. In fact, as a block plane, I think that having it be too heavy is not a good thing. I had some issues with the Stanley Sweetheart where the adjustable mouth, the piece at the front that moves up and down, wasn't seating perfectly flat because they drilled through after flattening it, and there was a burr on the inside. I think I might have deleted the video that was live with that. That being said, you cannot go wrong going vintage. Well, you can go wrong going vintage, but going vintage is a great thing. So a Stanley 61.5. Wow, I've forgotten the number. Check out vintagetoolshop.com, and if we do have one, it'll be a miracle because they sell almost as soon as we put them up. But yeah, a good quality vintage Stanley or Miller's Falls if you can find one, or Sargent low angle block plane. Now the Sargent ones have a bit of a weird mechanism in place and can be a little bit fiddly, but it's almost always a joy to have a vintage hand plane. So yeah, I would say that whatever you do, please, other than vintage, which does tend to be cheaper than new ones, please don't go for a cheap plane. If it is like $30-40 or quid new, it's almost certainly not going to be worth it. And if it is, please show me so that I can go and buy some. Divergent Guitars has come back in with the third super chat of the evening. Thank you very much, and stop spending your money on me. But anyway, it says, thanks for the answer, Ben. I'll route some chambers into the body. Pictures of the pretty walnut top and back on Discord in the hashtag build in progress thread. I will check that out this evening. Thank you very much. And that's a perfect segue to say, hey, check out the Discord, everybody. It is there, and it is worth spending some time on. Tutem Carmen says, hi Ben, and this is via Discord. In your opinion, what is the best nut material and why? From a sound point of view, I would say it would be harder nut materials are better. So I would say brass or a carbon fiber composite, somewhere along those lines would be fine. Now, frets are nickel silver. Nickel silver has no silver in it, it's nickel and brass. Brass nut is the closest sonically to the frets. So if you want an evenness of tone across your fretted and unfretted notes, it's a no-brainer. It's also fun to work. It is not stainless steel. Do not make a stainless steel nut. Unless you have CNC machines and milling machines and things to play with, that is. But yeah, from a sound point of view, I prefer harder, more reflective materials. Now, I would prefer carbon fiber over... No, I would prefer carbon fiber over brass because of the look, but carbon fiber is not... As long as it is well-made carbon fiber, it is not fun to cut. It is hard on your tools, and you really don't want to be breathing in that dust. So yeah. I use bone a lot, and there's a reason why bone is the premium thing. I know it's the only non-vegan part of a guitar, really, apart from my shoes. And it's also a byproduct, you know. It is what it is. So yeah, bone is also a good quality, hard, nice, reflective, and pretty substance. So those things. I am not a fan of the Graph Tech, whatever they've called it now. It was called something different when I first started. I don't know. Whatever their recipe is a little bit soft to me and makes it sound a little bit dead, in my opinion. That being said, I have not used one in a good decade, so it may well have changed. He says, prevaricating. Scotsman has sent me a photograph of a beautiful guitar that he's building. In Wikipedia, I think. Hi Ben, guitar number 5 finished, but part of me thinks it would look better with a darker brown. Ignore yourself. Ignore that part of yourself and put it out to pasture. If I was to sand back and do that with stain, would I be better to use something to highlight the grain first or just to use the stain? I've never used stains. Cheers. Okay, fun times. Okay, so essentially you've got a nice Sapele there, and it looks beautiful, beautiful guitar. If you do want it darker, hey, the guitar should bend to your will, not you to its. So, yeah, put that on my tombstone. The way to get the absolute best and deepest and most beautiful stain is exactly what you've said. Strip it down, put some really dark brown or black stain on, apply that evenly across the whole instrument or everywhere that you want to stain, then sand that back so that it is still there but in the background, and then you go and you apply a red, for example, or a lighter brown to just pop it. I'm going to assume that you have got. I'm going to assume that you have got offcuts from the guitar. So please do some stain tests first. Of course, Crimson Guitar stains are just the best stains in the world, bar none. Nothing comes even close to the quality and the love and the care. There is... You get the spiel. I would suggest water-based. I personally prefer water-based stains. I think that the spirit-based do get a more vibrant color in some cases, but I like the way that the water-based works when you're doing this particular job. But there we go. All right, Marshall Levine's come back with another super chat and says, yes, the desk got left behind. There we go, I did remember correctly. But I intend to recreate it, perhaps with some hand carving on the legs and skirting once I have a proper workshop again. No problem waiting for a reply. It serves me right. It's on my desk. I have a desk now. I built a desk. I bought an IKEA desk because I'm lazy. Specifically just to have somewhere to write letters. I'm good. It's my excuse and I'm sticking with it. Okie dokie. Tusk Nut? I think that is what they call it now, yes. Tusk with a Q. That's probably why I hate it. New Concept, spelled Knew. Tusk with a Q. There's a whole bunch of people who thought they were clever. And I know that there's a chance that this is going to get back to these particular people, but you know what? I'm sorry. Names like that annoy the poop out of me. Mr. Zombie 170 says, I use the Clifton block plane like a small coffin smoother. The Clifton block plane, now that's a heavy beast. And it was designed and created to be heavy. I was thoroughly disappointed with mine simply because the bubinga that was glued onto the handle, it just wasn't finished. Everything else was perfect. The metalwork was amazing, and this was made a long time ago, and I know that the actual Clifton has changed hands since then, or at the very least it was very early on in the new ownership at the time when I got mine. It just wasn't great, and it was a heavy instrument tool. It was a heavy tool, so I didn't like mine. But yes, as a small coffin smoother, that's exactly what that plane is like. Lee Nielsen 102 is a great block plane. I regret selling mine. That's from Ben Tyman. He says, and now you can't get them anywhere in the UK. The Lee Nielsen 102, is that similar to this Luban one? I'm pretty sure it is. And in fact, I have got both the Lee Nielsen and the Luban. In fact, I'd offer you one if I wasn't about to set up a workshop at Crimson as well. And the Luban is the better one. I shit you not. Oh, it might not be technically late, but it's later, and I'm getting a little bit foul-mouthed. Please apologise. I'm apologising. Anyway, the Luban is better, in my opinion. Specifically, the way that this works at the end here, it's less elegant. It's not hidden behind the curve. I think, like the Lee Nielsen one is, but it's bigger and you can actually get to it without any trouble. If I recall, the Lee Nielsen one is... Do I even have it? No, I don't have it in this workshop. Don't know it. But anyway, you might well be able to find one of these. And if you can, I would say go for it. Now, Stanley 220s are all over the place. That's from Mr. Waffles. Those are standard angle. And they're standard angle and they don't have an adjustable mouth. Now, I'm going to start actually rephrasing this. A low angle block plane is fantastic because you can do a little bit more with it. If you've got figured wood, which we sometimes do, then it handles figured wood in a better. It cuts it better. That being said, for most block planes, I would, if I had to use a standard angle block plane, I would be absolutely fine with that. I really would. As long as I have a fine mouth, i.e. the gap from when the blade is at its finest cutting point, the gap between the cutting point of the blade and the front of the plane has to be really tight, because we're doing fine work with the block plane, and a really open mouth like you get on 99.99% of 220 or number 220 block planes. It's massive, and you just will not get a nice cut with that. Now, the physics behind that are, as your blade is chiseling through the wood, I should probably say planing through the wood, the wood wants to break and go down into the timber below the line that the plane is going at. And it will do that. It will cause tear out, which is what that's called, if the mouth isn't there to stop it from doing exactly that. So a fine mouth breaks the shavings off and they go up into the plane. An open mouth allows the shaving to go up and it snaps underneath and will cause issues. So instead of me saying, hey, you need a low angle block plane, I would say you need a block plane either with a very tight mouth like you get on this Luban out of the box, or a block plane with an adjustable mouth. There we go. Yeah, I mean, that being said, this is a tiny little niter plane that I absolutely love, and you can see the difference between the blade angle. In fact, it's probably got a higher blade angle than standard, even. And I love this plane because it's got the tightest mouth imaginable. That and the fact that I got it for an absolute steal. I traded a Stanley number 1 for that, and yeah, it was worth 2 of them. Anyhow, questions. Disco Stew says, I've just remembered I popped a beer in the freezer. Beer iced lolly. Now, damn it, quick, get it out before it explodes. Okay, the important things, my daughter is asking for more time on her computer. She is going back to school tomorrow, and I assume she's trying desperately to do the homework that she's forgotten about. It's been a half term. Anyway, where are we? Luthier, I have a question for the live stream. My credit card got hacked. Yeesh, and the bastard spent money on it. It's cancelled now, but I can't send super chats. It's fine. It's fine. We're all good, dude. Thank you. Can you use the half-inch shank of a... Yes. Can you use the half-inch shank of a half-inch router cutter as a guide bush for flush trimming? You absolutely can. Yes, as long as you're careful. Yes. Do not stop. Do not stop moving. Do not stop moving. I said it twice. If you do stop moving because the shank is also traveling, you will burn the template, and you could actually burn a divot into both the template and the instrument. It just wouldn't be good. Okay, so keep it moving, take small cuts, and you'll be fine. That's how I do if I'm using a router for example, an F-hole on a Telecaster or something like that. If I'm going to do it with a router, that's what I would do. Personally, I do it by hand, but yeah. Also, choking a router bit out of the collet to add length. Is it kind of safe? How much minimum meat should be in the router's collet? Okay, so yeah, kind of safe, also kind of not safe. If a router bit does go flying, if it slips out of the collet, and that's happened to me a number of times, it tends to stay within the router, especially if you're already cutting. It'll stay in the piece of wood and just make a god-awful racket and scare the crap out of you. Okay, but you kind of want to avoid that, if at all possible. The general rule is 1/3 of the length of the... Yeah, 1/3 of the length of the shaft of the router bit should be in your collet at all times. Anything less than that, and it starts to get a little bit dicey. And if you have to, I would work up to it. I would have 1/3 or more in the collet, do most of your cuts, and then when you've done almost everything you need to do and you just need an extra few millimeters, then change things up and very gently make that cut. But yeah, that sounds fun. Marko Rachovic says, I heard the titanium Floyd Rose and it has much more sustain and more high frequency tones. As Ben says, it's harder material. As a harder material, it's better. Absolutely. So titanium is an absolute bugger to work with. But yeah, a titanium nut, that would be cool. Hugh McKay says, so no rebrand to Crimson Guitars then? It's in progress. It is in progress. All of these things take time. So essentially I'm separating out the guitar. It still belongs to Crimson. It's still a part of Crimson Guitars. It's still owned by me and is in the entity. But as a marketing thing, I'm changing the brand name of the production guitars that we make and the custom shop and things like that. So to something that isn't associated with kit guitars and guitar building tools and a guitar building school. It just needs to be a little bit different. And yeah, that is happening. It's just taken time. Robert R says Sharon Melford and waffles and sausage. Everybody's asking about the new stains. The new stains, I saw stickers last week, and when you see hundreds or thousands of stickers to go on bottles, that means that things are actually literally imminent. So they're actually literally imminent at this stage, and I'm very excited by that. Ben Timon says, yes, it's the same as that Luban one. Honestly, if you can, look for the Luban one. You will be impressed. The mouth was tighter than the Lie-Nielsen one, and the adjustment was better than the Lie-Nielsen one. It's a lovely little plane. It really is. Well, the fact that I've got it there and I have the Lie-Nielsen one, and the Lie-Nielsen one's been in my general home. I've got a toolbox somewhere just for, hey, I've got to fit a lock or whatever. That's where that plane lives. And which is, I know, a sin, really. But this one's better. So there we go. Divergent Guitar says, I've used Tusk on a couple of builds and they sound great. I'll need to give it a try, actually. I've been meaning to check out more of what Graphtech are doing. I know I used their ratio tuners on a build recently on one of my personal guitars. I love them. Okay, question, Superstrat, trim or hardtail? This is from Tutum Carman. I mean, it's a Strat trim, but hardtail if you don't like trims. In the end, it's entirely about what you're going to play on the guitar. If it's for a customer, probably I'd say trem. If it's just to keep on learning how to build guitars, definitely trem. But if it's something that you're going to play and you don't play with a trem, then avoid trems. Yeah, mold the guitar to yourself. Mr. Waffle says, aren't Floyd roses required on super strats? I think so. I think by law, yes. Joel Shapiro, I'm doubly disappointed in you. Joel Shapiro says, I'm late. I spent the last hour making up the bass for Jambalaya. I'm disappointed that you're late, and I'm disappointed that you don't live anywhere near me, because that sounds delicious. But yeah, better late than never. Welcome to the stream. We've got 90 people watching, 67 likes. That's 89 people watching, 67 likes. That's a good ratio. Ian M says, it's also worth noting, if your router spits the bit, I kind of want to get that tattooed on me somewhere, it will probably muck up your collet. Ask me how I know. That is a good point. I'm very lucky that I use Triton routers, and that I've had, because of the business, we have lots of them, which means we have a lot of collets floating around. I haven't actually managed to break one, but then again, I haven't caused a router to spit the bit for a number of years now. And I still remember how scared I was the very first time I did. Barry Christian, how are you doing, Barry? Says, would Delrin make a good nut or saddle material? Do you know what? I think it would, but I have never actually tried. That's a very good question. I think give it a go. I really do. Jamie Butler Underwood says, hi Ben, tuning in from Australia. How's it going? Rab Knox preceded this with a million question marks. Ben, talking planes, how much should I be looking to spend on a number 6? They've stopped letting me put planes or tools of any sort in the pricing up bins at the vintage tool shop. This is when you know that you've succeeded in successfully delegating all of the tasks to other people who know better. So I haven't, essentially, hand planes and tools in general have gone through the roof in the last year. I would not be... Hell, a year ago, 45 to 50 pounds. Nowadays, probably closer to 75, 80, I would say, based on what it's looking at the market. I can't keep them in stock. I cannot keep good planes in stock. They just, poof, they go. So, yeah. But somewhere around about there, maybe as high as 90, but at that point I would start questioning things. Tools are what they are. Robert asks, how are you planning on finishing the holes you put in your daughter's guitar? So in the next video, you will see me standing next to a laser cutter while somebody else does all of the difficult work. We cut about 150 flamed ash veneered circles, and I have been sitting watching Netflix gluing circles into the bottom of every single one of those holes to cover up the witness marks left by the Forstner bits. The next time I do this, it's going to be a CNC jobby, I think, really. In fact, my hand is now sore from all of the cutting out, and I've only cut out half of them. Okay, that being said, I am almost 100% sure that I'm going to be staining them with bright pink, and maybe even keeping the purple to blue stain that is currently on there, or at least renewing it. And we're going to have a purple, blue, and pink. That being said, this is up for some debate, and I'm not entirely sure what stains I'm going to do. The finish, however, is going to be It's a 2-pack poly, very quick drying that we use on students' guitars and some of the other instruments. I'm actually going to take it to Crimson and spray it in the spray booth. It's going to be fun getting it in all those holes, but it should be all right. And it's also I'm going for a matte finish, so it doesn't really matter if it's applied perfectly or sanded perfectly. It should be good. Joe Smile John Jr. is back in with a $5 super chat. Thank you very much. And says the Wood River No. 6 hand plane, wow, is roughly $300 US. So, I think Wood River is made by Huangshan, so you're talking 220, 240 quid, something like that. So actually, even spending 90 quid on a vintage Stanley No. 6 is probably not bad. And if it was this one, I mean, that's 150 quid Stanley No. 6, because that's particularly collectible. So not only do you have just standard Stanleys and records and stuff like that, some of them are 150 years old and in fantastic condition. Do I have that here? I've got a 5.5H in here. It looks exactly like every other plane I've got, and it's worth 500, 600 quid. It's insane. Zach Ellison, Ben, would you please invite Third Coast Craftsman, I like his work, into the official GGBO 22. He's an amazing fine furniture builder and guitar player. I hope so. Glad the family and yourself are doing good. At this stage, I'm not even sure that there is going to be an official side to the Great Guitar Build-Off. I think that the GGBO has swiftly turned into what everybody else is building, and having 5 or 6 or 7 YouTubers doing their thing actually detracts from what I think the competition should be. This isn't an official announcement, it's just I'm seriously considering not bothering with that side of it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Bum 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 bum. Deerhorn, that's from Rab Knox. Neil Jelks says, so planes cost £1 a year, lol. Well spotted, well spotted. Yeah, good ones do, good ones do. Yeah. Okay. Mr. Waffles says all tools are going up fast because collectors are hoarding them and the supply is dwindling. Just that's fine. We're nothing to see here. I don't think that's the reason why. So I've been a vintage tool dealer now for 4 years, 4.5 years, I suppose, something like that. And the tools are out there. I haven't seen a drop in how many I've been able to get. I have seen a growth even in that time in how many people are interested in buying them. And I think that supply is fairly consistent, but specifically through lockdowns and people working from home and having more time, and through YouTube and channels like mine and watching all of this stuff, I just think that more and more and more and more people are interested in making things, and as such, there's a limited supply and more demand. Okay, let's put it this way. The biggest collection of tools that I bought, I spent £9,500 on just hand planes. It's a bit crazy. And the guy collected planes and he loved planes and that's what it was. But even he only had, at worst, 2 or 3 of each different type. So, at number 6, he maybe had 2 or 3 different number 6s for different reasons. In the same way that I've got a couple of 5.5s, I've got the 5.5H, I've got a 5.5, I've got, and I've got a couple of workshops. This guy had lots of planes, but they also made lots and lots and lots and lots of different numbers. In fact, I still own some of his planes that went straight into my collection. And it's just, hey, I want this age, I want this number 6, and that's my number 6. I'm working on a particular collection here. And I don't think I've ever bought a collection in the 4 years, and we've listed more than 40,000 tools for sale. Yeah, people aren't stockpiling number 6s or number 7s or whatever in general. But anyway, sorry. Now we need to start talking about watches, and we've done the trifecta. Joe's come back with another super chat. Joe, thank you very much. And he says, thankfully, I got my vintage Stanley number 5 for $50. You just have to find the right seller that doesn't know the true value of what they have. This is the thing. I mean, there are definite bargains to be had. I'm feeling sick to the stomach. A couple of years ago, I was at a car boot sale, and I got there at about 9 o'clock. The thing started at 7. And somebody had found a Stanley number 1 in a box and paid a $5 for it. Pain. Tutum Carmen says, an idea I had today, would a wooden bridge work on an electric? I was thinking to put string ferrules in the back of it. Yes, there's no reason. Well, look at Dan Electro, for example. Look at jazz guitars. There's no reason not to. We have grown used to all of the flexibility and ability to change intonation and action and all of that comes with a modern bridge. But that isn't an absolute necessity. A talented, well, anybody really could make a bridge that will work just from a strip of wood. It doesn't have to be amazing. Look at cigar box guitars, for example. Okie dokie. Phil Girk's come back in with another super chat. Thanks very much, Phil, and says, we love our brass, stainless, titanium, etc. What about bronze? Suitable for a bridge? Saddles? Not. Maybe it's too soft, too ugly. Okay, so bronze is freaking gorgeous. In fact, that plane that I was lusting after earlier, that's made out of bronze. This is a chunk of bronze. Bronze is brass and tin and arsenic, I think. Bronze is actually harder than steel, harder than iron at the very least. It is harder than brass and is absolutely perfect for nuts. It's amazing. It's got a lovely look. I've made a couple of bronze nuts in the past, and there's a reason why bells are made out of bronze. It sounds great. And that's all I have to say about that. Okay, Vax Hidrum saying, I think Delrin is not hard enough for a nut. I am going to I'm going to believe you on that. I haven't played with it in many years. Joel Shapiro says, sorry, Ben, it will be delicious. If you're ever in California, you're welcome to come for dinner and we can talk guitars and other stuff. Done. It's a deal. And it's all right. I forgive you. Mr. Zombie 170 says, what do you think about Marple's prefabricated plane, a wooden body with a Stanley style adjuster? I'm getting one soon and looking forward to it. They're beautiful planes. I've had a few come through the shop, and it's the perfect combination of modern convenience, i.e. adjustability, etc., and vintage cool and usability. Having a wooden base makes a plane so much better. It just does. In fact, that could be a fun experiment. I have never once considered putting a wooden veneer on the bottom of a metal plane on the sole of a metal plane just to see what that would do. It would reduce friction. A wooden body reduces friction, and you've got a much lighter tool. And I don't understand why Clifton, for example, make planes that weigh 3 times more than they need to, or more. And they're just not fun to use. They might be absolutely stable, but they're engineers. They're engineers over there, and they said, "Yep, I don't want this thing to move. I'm going to make it fucking huge." And that's what they do. And the castings are 5 millimeters or more thick, whereas on my 100-year-old perfectly stable 140 odd year old Stanleys, they're thin castings and they're beautiful. So modern planes do not need to be as over-engineered as they currently are. Disco Stew says Crimson, or insert new brand name here. Production guitars rarely use binding, if ever. Why? ? Cost. Is it because bound guitars don't sell? I love bound guitars, and we don't use binding on bodies very often, mainly because in the last 2 or 3 years, the production guitars, we've got the Descendant, which is a Tele type, which, although my favourite Telecaster ever is the Japanese 62 reissue with a tobacco sunburst and binding, they don't often have binding. And the Scion, which is basically our version of a PRS, which has got faux binding on the body. So yeah. Now, we bind the necks a lot on the production guitars, but we haven't designed a bound production body recently. That is going to change. So no, it's literally just look and what we've been doing. This next year is going to be amazing. Really is. Rab Knox says, Ben, Deerhorn is a nut. Too soft, and if not, what kind of tone do you think you'd get from it? I've never played with Deerhorn. That was a conversation between you and Lisa, and Lisa says Deerhorn? ? Okay. Simon's channel says, find a village hall somewhere, find the cost for a few hours, get people to pay it, make a little profit off the top. I am totally out of context. Yeah, Simon's channel. Again, we're talking to Lisa. Oh, car boot sales. Yes. I love them. Absolutely love them. It's one of the worst things about lockdown, etc., has been that I haven't been to a car boot sale in 2 years. Anyway. Ben Timon says, isn't mammoth ivory still legal? Mammoth ivory in the US is still legal and is available. Quite frankly, just using normal bone, it gets the same sort of result. There is no difference. There is very little difference between ivory and bone, really, from a tone point of view. And if you really care that much, then I think there's other ways to do it. Sinner's Dwarf says, any plans to offer finance options for guitar courses, making them more accessible for those with smaller financial circumstances? For a long time, we had a partnership where you could pay it off over a year. Now, that was through a third party, and doing that just meant that we were able to offer less discounts and things like that when we did sales and things because of the cut that they took. Now, that being said, if you are interested, we would happily do a layaway sort of a system. In fact, we often do. I don't think it's advertised really, but if you want to book a course and pay a deposit and then pay £100 a month or whatever, that is something that we're absolutely willing to do and would be fine. I am also looking at other third-party partners to do that. So if you're particularly interested, drop us an email and we can go. We can go from there. Lisa's asking me if I use radius blocks. I do use radius blocks, mainly as clamps, as clamping calls. I'm very lucky, I'm good with a hand plane. And it's taken me a very, very long time, but I can get a radius to what I want it to be very quickly with a hand plane. And I would suggest that anybody who can't do that needs to practice, because it's not that difficult. And once you've got the perfect confluence of sharpened plane, tight mouth, and easy to plane wood, you can save yourself hours of work with a radius block. Now, that being said, once you have, and you can also with a plane get a compound radius with ease, and that is something that you just can't do with a radius block, not a traditional radius block, at least. So, that being said, yes, I do, and oftentimes I will plane it to within, as close as I can get, and then I'll use a radius block for the last 5 minutes. They're not fun things to use. But, yeah. Simon's channel says, what about shorter courses like inlays, binding, making a neck, etc.? Yes, if you're interested in something like that, drop us a line. We do 2-day, 3-day repair courses, but you can happily come down and spend 3 days making a neck, for example, or 3 days or 2 days, and you spend those 2 days just doing frets or refrets or whatever you want to do. So yeah. Zach Edison says, no, keep the YouTubers. It's great seeing how others build. Plus it gets new viewers and builders. I'm not so sure about that. Builders are artists whose art goes on to create more art through other artists' touch people. Did you hear what I was saying when I was saying what I was saying? That sentence confused the poop out of me. Look, I agree. I love watching what comes out of it. And, Colin's guitar was phenomenal. I mean, the whole package was just amazing. But I think that anybody who's interested in building guitars in the YouTube space is already watching, or at least is aware of our channel and is 100% aware of the GGBO and what's going on. I don't think we're going to get very many new people into it by watching Tamar Hannah's channel, for example. Her viewers are not guitar builders. Her viewers are people who are interested in watching her build whatever she happens to be building. So if, say, 1% of the 100,000 people that would watch one of her videos is interested in coming over, they probably were already. So I think it's a minimal gain. Personally, looking at the subscriber numbers on the Crimson Guitars channel, there was no appreciable difference whatsoever. And that wasn't why I did it. I did it because, hey, lockdown, and I wanted something cool to do that gave people something to watch and do in their downtime. But there wasn't any appreciable difference in subscribers. There just wasn't. So that argument is what it is. But the real problem is that GGBO morphed into something that was bigger than itself. It's supposed to be getting people into building by financially supporting them. And as I said in last week's live stream, it cost us 6 months or more, probably more actually, I haven't looked at the final figures, of a full-time wage just to administer the contest last year, which meant that I think we've given away 3 guitar building courses and probably a couple of grand's worth of tools, but not much. And it's just not. It's not enough. It's not what I wanted, and I need to find some way of doing it so that it doesn't require that sheer amount of manpower, or at the very least, so that GGBO itself isn't paying for that the manpower to answer the emails and upload the photos and all that jazz. So the whole competition has to change, and while I'm doing it, we're thinking about whether we need YouTubers, or if we should just have the whole thing as the whole thing, and go from there. Thomas Gillis has sent $5. Thanks very much, Thomas, and says, hello. If I were to make metal guard or control plates, what metals are appropriate, and what hand tools would you recommend using to shape that? Okay, you can make them out of copper is my favorite personally, so I love making copper scratch plates. Copper or brass, of course. I've used aluminium in the past. Aluminium tends to scratch and really causes problems. It does not, unless you anodize the hell out of it, then you're not going to have something that is going to remain pristine for too long. Copper, same sort of deal, but it's harder. Brass, even more so. Bronze, even more so. But at that point, it's harder to work. Watch the video that I did making Grace Kelly's eyes as an inlay. All you really need is metalworking files and a standard inlay saw with a much finer blade than that. That was for cutting shelves the other day. So yeah, watch an inlay video. Those are the tools that you need. Joe's come back in and says keep the official competition because those guitars are, as of right now, the only ones that can be auctioned off for the charity. You've got to the nub of the matter, the crux of the... Give me a C word, people. Yes. That is the thing. Those instruments raise the money. They raise part of the money. The members' fees. The entrance fee is another way to make money, and then there's donations and stuff. But it's a trade-off. How much time is spent doing it? So I don't know. I've literally got a meeting next week to talk about that, and we will start coming soon. Disco Stu says, surely the YouTubers doing a GGBO build will push viewers out to those without significant channel. Do you know what? I apologise. Looking from my point of view, and this sounds incredibly arrogant, but looking from my point of view as one of the biggest, if not the biggest guitar building YouTube channel, I didn't see a jump in subscribers. I just didn't. And it was just absolutely standard, normal growth because of GGBO. But that doesn't make any real difference. The point of this competition isn't my channel's growth. It never was. The point of the competition is promoting you guys and other people and getting other people into it. So yes, actually, that is a very good point. I think we should probably keep the official competition, and for that very point, if even a small percentage of people watch a big channel's videos and then goes and checks out a smaller ones and subscribes, then that is a subscriber to that channel and is worth doing. So yeah, very good point. Spike says he sent some recommendations for divisions and rules. I did read them and we've got them. Don't need to resend them. That is, it's everything has been distilled into this giant document that we need to now go through. But I do remember reading your message. Rab Knox says, Ben, the YouTubers' invitational entrants never pushed the GGBO in their channels, so that's probably why the viewership never really saw an appreciable difference. This is the thing. I was particularly disappointed in a few of them. as were the rest of us. But that's the thing. So, yeah, I don't know. Lisa says, I dislike radius blocks and will go out of my way to avoid using them. Welcome to the club. So, yes. Lepra Khan says, I'm currently working on some handle scales with the most ridiculous piece of figured walnut. A piece of flooring I've been holding for 10 plus years. The wood is so pretty, picking what part to use is hard. That's fine. You use all of it, even if it takes 5 knife scales. 5 knives worth of scales. I have wood like that myself. I've been just holding on and holding on and holding on. I've still got offcuts from the quilted Sapedi body of the 90-hour build. One day. Joss Bars says, first GGBO got me into guitar building. This GGBO, I was too busy trying to build my own first guitar, which I still need to finish. That is why we're here. So thank you very much for letting us know. And I'm assuming that in January you're going to be joining GGBO 22. Lewis Wingrove says, GG Great Guitar Build-Off led me to Crimson Guitars and my awareness of Ben and others. Okay. Well, there we go. So it has made a difference. So there we go. Joe Smyjohn Jr. says, Brad Angove was one of the invitational competitors that actually did promote. Brad was incredible. He actually did promote GGBO and other channels. The first GGBO was what got me subscribed to his channel. I agree. So, I mean, Brad is... he did even more than I did on my channel for GGBO. He got involved, he got down, and he just did it, and he made the competition what it is, in all seriousness. So yeah. But yeah, some of the other even bigger YouTubers I don't know. Anyway, it is what it is. Grammar Sal and Farborden says, just don't get Jimmy, what's his face again for 22, please. We will not be re-inviting Jimmy DeResta. Just no. He apologized for his first thing and how he did it. He apologized profusely, said he wanted to be involved, and promised that it was going to be, and it just wasn't. And you've got to give people a second chance. You have to. And just at this point, no, we're not. Robert R. says, hey Ben, when you have pretty heavy wood that you like and want to build a guitar from but don't like the weight of, why not slice off 4 or 5 mil from one side, chamber it, and then glue the pieces together? You always end up with a glue line. So I've done that before. I absolutely have done that before. But there has to be a more elegant way of doing it that doesn't necessarily involve drilling 80-odd holes in the guitar. Jamie Butler Underwood says, is there enough surface area in a Telecaster heel to glue in as a set neck? Yes, absolutely. I'm using a Tele template and I'm about to go ahead and glue it in without bolts. Please put my mind at ease, Ben. 100%. No worries whatsoever. Glue her in. As long as you've got a good joint, you will be fine. I'm running low on energy, everybody. If you've got any burning questions, send through a super chat, or hopefully I will see it. Joe, there we go. Joe says, well, I'm off to drive up. I'll be ghosting for the rest of the stream. Joe, thank you very much. I really, really do appreciate your support, dude. And we will talk again next week, I hope. Svi Wheeler, is that how you pronounce your name? Says, forgive my noobness here, but what is the GGBO? Wow. Okay, great guitar build-off. In the first lockdown, another channel's another channel had some fans who were mutual fans who suggested to somebody else that there should be a guitar building competition online, and wouldn't it be fun if they did it with me and other people. I heard about that question, spoke to the channel in question, and said, you know what, actually, we could do this. Why not? They were in, they won, actually, and then were judges for the second year. And it ended up it was going to be just a YouTube competition where 4 or 5 guitar builders who were on the YouTube space competed for a prize. And a bunch of videos were made. And during COVID, life got a little bit less boring for people who were interested in guitar building. Within 24 hours, we had people saying, can I join? And we ended up having nearly 100 contestants from the public make videos and guitars. And we pulled together a whole prize pool, tools from Triton Power Tools and Isotunes and various other places. And it was great. Immediately, well, a year later, we did last year. We did it again. We had even more YouTubers in the official competition, and something like 8 million video views, something like that across the board. A lot of money was raised. A lot of money was spent on running the damn thing, and I think 400 people entered into the competition as entrants, and we managed to give away 3 or 4 guitar building courses and some kit guitars and bits and pieces paid for by GGBO to people who couldn't really afford it but who deserved to be able to get into guitar building. And that's the whole point of it, and hence the conversation today is trying to figure out a way to run the competition, because the next one is due to start in January, or at least be announced in January and start in February. But the format has to change because, not to put too fine a point on it, not only did we have to have a full-time member of staff doing it, but my team at Crimson Guitars ended up doing a lot of work, and my company really suffered, like fundamentally and desperately suffered as a result of the amount of time that we spent on it that wasn't actually being spent on our business, which just doesn't make business sense now, does it? But anyway, it's great fun, and it's a huge thing, and it has to keep on going, so we just need to figure out how to do that, basically. Rob Tootle says, I have a vintage oak tabletop, approximately 20mm thick, about 150 years old. Is this suitable material for a neck? It depends entirely on the grain. It should be stable as all hell, and it should be, yeah. You could probably build the whole guitar out of it. But the grain is the thing. Robert R says you could use veneers to enhance the joint and make it a feature, or binding below the joint and you would never see the joint. Exactly, those are the options. Phil Girk says, Ben, my neck joint has a bit of slop that I'm not proud of. What can I do before glue up? Thank you so once again for everything. It's a pleasure, Phil. Thank you very much as well. Define a bit of slop. If it's fairly solid and it goes in, you're not having to push it in, you should be fine, actually. The glue will do its job. If it's actively moving, like you've got like a 0.5 millimeter gap or something like that, I would consider veneer, putting a veneer in there and making it tight. Alternatively, I'm just debating using polyurethane glue that sort of expands to fill gaps and stuff. It is designed for that, and it would do a good job. The problem is that glue doesn't take shocks very well, especially if it's long grain. Yeah, veneer. or make it a bolt-on. As Rob Tootle said. But no, yeah, Neil Jugs, same veneers. Spike says self-published bios and pictures as an idea to lessen your staffing load. That is definitely what we're going to do at the very least. Tahoe Mike says, I'd love to see you invite some of the players and teachers on YouTube to try building. The Arbitos, Mary Spender. Mary's phenomenal. Rachel, Mary was a judge this year. Phil, Wings of Pegasus, Daryl Braun, of the world. It would be fun. I absolutely agree. Yeah. There we go. Bill Gook says, yeah, $500,000 or so. I would put a veneer in. I really would. Okay, no, here we go. So, okay, this sounds naughty. You could use the dust and glue trick, i.e., apply normal glue to the end grain and to the bottom and to the one side that is the side that you need to go, because there's always two different sides, and then have a mixture of dust and glue. So sand down or file down the wood of the neck or the wood of the body, whichever you choose to do, and in that side use this thicker glue. It's essentially and literally wood filler. It's made out of glue and the wood, and it will both be nice and solid, and also, and also hopefully be a little bit less obvious, fingers crossed, than a chunk of veneer, especially since most people don't actually have a veneer that perfectly matches whatever woods they're using. I would try that. Tahoe Mike says, I kind of imagine it as the Crimson Summer Guitar Building Camp. Spike says, big channels, if they truly commit, great. If they don't even build it, no thanks, just a black eye. Yeah, well, the less we say about that, the better. In fact, I think I need to invoice him for a bloody kit. The design competition, that's gone out the window as well. Is there any possibilities to make the design competition and to make the winner's design? I so desperately wanted to do that, and it's just all gone to... I gave away too much last year. And it's coming to bite me in the ass. Blues Cover says, hi Ben, I challenge you. Can you make a guitar? Of course you can, but less expensive as you can, that will include the price of wood and materials and the price of the tools used. Thank you. So the cheapest possible build. I do want to go to the local big box store with, say, 200 or 300 quid and build an entire guitar from scratch out of stuff that I buy there, up to and including potentially pickups. That could be fun. Yeah. Rob Phoenix sent a £5 super chat and said, crap, I'm late! Exclamation point. Stop enunciating the punctuation, Ben. This is for my tardiness. So Rob, you've just paid me £5 for your tardiness. I got bogged down with a headstock transition. Quite frankly, as excuses go, I don't think your teacher at school would sort of let that one slide, but I think that's a damn fine excuse, and I welcome to the stream. By the time you hear this, I'm assuming you're listening from the beginning. Yeah, I will be fast asleep. I would love to see Chris Buck involved in the next GGBO somehow. That's from Courier 11 Sec. I don't actually know who that is. Or if I do, I've forgotten that I do. I am diabolical with names. Mr. Waffle says, watching Ben get more and more stressed the more he talks about GGBO, it makes me sad. I'm sorry, that shouldn't be coming through. I just wanted to do as much good as humanly possible. I wanted to promote as much guitar building as possible. And, you know, if it means that 100 or 200 people stop procrastinating, I'm the worst at procrastinating, and build a guitar and film it, and it's giving them the impetus to push them and do that, that's fantastic. And if we can raise enough money through that to do some good and help people who can't even afford to get into it, fantastic. That's what we're after. But yeah, I mean, last year my business suffered as a result of GGBO, and we ended up not doing anywhere near as much good as I had hoped through that. And it was through multiple things. But yeah, we need to do better. Anyway. Courier116 says, while it is amazing, Crimson and, of course, you, Ben, should not be stuck bankrolling GGBO. I thought we'd got it to a point where it wouldn't be. I just didn't realise... Here we go. I've said this many times, and some of you will have heard me say this before, but every single time a company doubles in size, everything about the company breaks. GGBO went from 5 or 6 contestants to 100 on day one, and year 2 it was 400 contestants and 10 YouTubers, and it didn't double, it quadrupled in size, and everything broke several times, and it just takes time. So the job now is to sit down, figure out the format, figure out the process, make sure that the judging, we have to make it so that people have to, for example, make a £1 donation and sign up to the website in order to just vote, because that's the only way to make sure that it's a real person voting rather than somebody voting multiple times. One of the contestants last year made a call out asking for people to scam the voting so that they could win. It's just I got stressed again. Anyway, it is what it is. Chris Buck is a brilliant guitarist in Wales, incredible youngish blues player. If you look him up, you'll not regret it. Sounds like somebody that I'd like to get a guitar to. Okay. Thank you, Robert R. I appreciate that. Gramasal and Verborden says, does a man-powered machine tool count as a power tool? Like those lathes that run on pedal power? I've got a Holtzapfel. It's at the tool shop, but it's not going to sell. And I'm so happy it's not going to sell. I've got it's a treadle-powered Holtzapfel mini table saw. So beautiful. It's like $2,500 and worth every penny. But Holtzapfel also made treadle-powered lathes, and those go for 5, 6, 7 and more £1,000. So I don't know. Technically, it is. Should be fine. But yeah, I don't know. I think you can get away with that one. I do. Okay. Tommy Transplant, that's a good name, says GGBO was the catalyst. Is there a story behind that name? Because I kind of want to hear it. GGBO was the catalyst for my first kit build. Now I've done 3 kits and 2 total rescues of basket case guitars. It's working, Ben. Okay. Thank you very much, Tommy. I'm gonna have to keep it going. Divergent Guitar says GGBO thus far has been amazing, all criticism aside. It's what got me off the couch and into the shop, and is 100% why I'm now regularly, slowly, building guitars. Okay, well look, there is no way that it's not going to happen. It's just the actual format and how it works. There is going to be an entrance fee. It might have to be a little bit higher than last year. There is going to a little bit higher than last year. We're not talking like £100. There is going to have to be some sort of volunteer thing, or at the very least, contestants are going to have to create their own pages and upload their own images and links to their own videos and that sort of stuff, and keep it current. If 400 people are doing that, as opposed to, one guy that the GGBO itself is paying, it'll just make the whole thing smoother and easier, and then all we have to do is answer the hundreds of emails. And even that could potentially be wiki. Maybe we could do a wiki. There's ways to do it. Anyway, come on then. I'm gonna call it a night, really. There's still 100 of us here, and I really do appreciate your support, but it is getting late and I have got a hell of a day tomorrow. It's gonna be great fun. So there we go. Anyway, look. Ooh, Tommy Transplant. Transplant because I'm a nurse, I swap livers for a living, and also relocate often. It's a double whammy. That is incredible. You have a cooler job than I do, and a whole hell of a lot more necessary as well. So thank you. Okay, fine. Aracor says, Ben, are you going to be doing any sort of build series on the making of guitar cases? Maybe one day. I answered this last week as well. It's not really what I do. But as I'm moving back into Crimson and also doing a lot more work with CNC machines and laser cutters, I will always have a hand tool build going on at any one point. But I'm also going to be doing one-off, here's a 45-minute video of us as a team building this cool thing, that cool thing. Here's a laser, here's a CNC. So actually, maybe. Okay. Will Automotive polyester base coat and 2K lacquer work on a guitar? Yes. Almost every single guitar manufactured in the world today uses exactly that. I have some left over from my classic car restoration and could match guitar to car. How the hell can you afford both classic car restoration and a guitar habit? Because those two things are both horrifically expensive. Actually, probably not necessarily so. It is the finish of choice. Go for it. It's what we use most of the time. Anthony Cunliffe, thank you very, very much. He says, don't forget Nebula. I'm not going to forget Nebula. In fact, I'm going to grab her now. So, Nebula needs to go to Crimson tomorrow. And I need cameras and audio equipment and all sorts of stuff. We're going to film some clips of her being played in a slightly better environment than my shed. And there will be a super edit, I hope, on Saturday. Dang nabbit. Yes, wool lining in a case could cause problems with finishes, mainly because wool actually is fairly abrasive. I would use a synthetic fibre if at all possible. Crushed velvet, that sort of stuff, is really good. Wool itself is not. Although I might be wrong. Depends on the quality of wool, really. But there we go. Okay, anyway, Lisa, thank you very much. Says love to the Crows and take it easy now. I am going to. Thank you very, very much. You guys absolutely rule. I really appreciate your support. See, even now, even as I'm trying to say goodbye, I'm also looking for more questions. I'm going. I'm done. We're done. It's been a great stream. Thank you for everything, and I will see you this time next week. Keep it real. Go make some sawdust. Or play a guitar at the very least. Goodbye.